Honourable Marianne Street.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. It gives me pleasure to rise to speak to the Local Government Auckland Council Amendment Bill number 2. I want to pick up on a comment that the Honourable Phil Heatley made earlier, where he said he wondered why people were so angry on this side of the House about a piece of legislation on which we all agree. Well, clearly we're not angry about the piece of legislation. We wouldn't be agreeing with it if we did. And I don't think anybody is naturally angry, which is what he was suggesting. Being naturally angry requires far too much energy for most people. So I think when people are angry, there is always a reason for it. And when the buttons of local democracy in Auckland are pushed, the members opposite will always get an angry response. Right. So it should be no puzzle to the Honourable Phil Heatley that when local government matters come up, that the dissension and the discontent and the riding roughshod over democratic process, which is the hallmark of this government, comes to the fore. It shouldn't be any surprise to them. We've seen them do it in Christchurch. We've seen them do it in Auckland. This should be no surprise. When local government representation is denied people in the usual way, then they do get upset. People do get upset. We have been upset by it, and it should be no surprise if we start to sound angry about people having their democratic rights and their ability to participate taken away. So let's just settle that one. There is a perfectly good reason why members on this side of the House who come from Auckland do express anger about it. Having lived for nearly 30 years myself in Auckland, I feel the same way. But as I'm no longer a representative from the Auckland area, but from Nelson, I will give that right over to my colleagues who still reside there. What I wanted to say, Mr Speaker, apart from Happy Suffrage Day to you, sir, is that I'm delighted in this bill, in some of the early comments and the purpose of the bill. We know that it amends the Local Government Auckland Council Act to enable local boards to delegate responsibilities and duties and powers conferred on them under the Act. They previously, currently, they have been able to delegate those powers, and this provision was in the Local Government Auckland Transitional Provisions, Fees and Charges Regulations 2010, and those regulations expire on the 31st of October this year. Mr Speaker, just a few weeks ago, I was in this House berating the Minister Simon Bridges for the complete ineptitude. In fact, it wasn't his piece of legislation, but he was carrying it at the time. It was Jerry Brownlee's piece of legislation on road user charges, where regulations had been disallowed, had been reintroduced, had had a disallowance motion put on them again, but I had withdrawn that disallowance motion because legislation was to come into the House in time for regulations that would see a rolling over of an existing condition. That all happened out of time. Jerry Brownlee didn't get one of those deadlines right. And as a result, we were passing the legislation weeks after the time the regulations had actually expired. And so I would like to congratulate the Honourable Chris Tremaine for getting it right. And perhaps he could show the Honourable Jerry Brownlee how it's done. Because the purpose of this is that the bill amends the original Act, this bill amends the original Act to put those powers of delegation into the Act itself. Instead of just having it as regulation, this bill will amend the primary legislation. That is what Jerry Brownlee should have done, but didn't. Chose not to, or was too lazy to, or didn't know he had to, or some other reason, all of which comes down to incompetence in the end. So Chris Tremaine has done the right thing. The bill amends the Act, before the regulations expire on the 31st of October. Whoopee! The government's got it right. It has got the sequence right, and that is one of the reasons where I'm absolutely delighted to support this bill. This means that the Act itself, which becomes effective from the 1st of November 2013, will be effective the day after the transitional regulations expire, which is great. That's as it should be, and it's been brought to the House for debate. So full marks, Chris Tremaine. Go and tell your senior colleagues how it's done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Maggie Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak to the second reading of Local Government Auckland Council Amendment Bill. Here we go.